So you found a small spot of mold tucked away in a corner. The big question is, right? Is this just a quick cleanup job, or is it the first sign of a much bigger problem? Let's figure that out. Yeah, you see it right. Maybe it's behind some furniture, maybe it's just in that corner of the ceiling. And your first thought is always, can I just, wipe this away and call it a day? Or is this the actual tip of the iceberg, a warning sign for something much bigger hiding just out of sight? And this is where so many of us make the biggest mistake. We judge the problem by its size. We think small patch, small problem. But honestly, size can be so deceptive. The real story here isn't about how big that spot is. It's about why it's even there to begin with. Okay, so first up, let's break down why that one little patch can be so misleading. And it really all comes down to where mold decides to pop up. See, mold is incredibly opportunistic. It doesn't just show up randomly. Nope. It grows where the conditions are absolutely perfect for it. And what that means is the very first spot you see, that's almost always the room's weakest point. Think about it. That one corner that's always freezing cold, or the spot behind the wardrobe where the air just doesn't move, that's where it starts. Let's put it this way. That one spot was just the first to hit what you could call the failure threshold. It's the first symptom, like the first cough when you're getting a cold. It's a huge warning signal, not the actual boundary of the problem. The issue is likely affecting the whole room.
So, to really get to the bottom of this, we've got to figure out if we're dealing with a one-off event or an ongoing pattern. And trust me, getting this right is the absolute key to a proper diagnosis.
Okay, so the cause of mold almost always boils down to one of two things. On one hand, you've got an isolated event, a one-off plumbing leak you can fix, dry out, and you're done. But on the other hand, you have an environmental pattern, and this is the tricky one. It's an ongoing issue, like poor ventilation that's just creating this perfect, welcoming home for mold, day in and day out. An isolated event is, well, it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. A pipe bursts, you fix it, you dry it out, and boom, story's over. The condition that caused it is gone. But an environmental pattern? Now that's a different beast entirely. It's systemic. The problem isn't just one leak. It's the entire climate of the room. And because it's about the whole environment, you can bet it's not just affecting that one tiny spot. All right, so how can you tell which one you're dealing with? You got to put on your detective hat for a minute. Let's go over the clues that scream wider issue. Clue number one, you're seeing it in multiple locations. I mean, if you've got little patches popping up in a few places in the same room, that's one thing. But the real giveaway? Seeing the same kind of spot in different rooms, like, say, in the corner of every single external wall. That's not just a series of unlucky accidents, folks. That's a huge red flag for a systemic problem. Okay, clue number two. This one's a classic, and I'm sure some of you have lived this nightmare. You clean the mold, and a few weeks later, poof, it's back. Or even worse, a brand new patch shows up right next to the old one. This is literally the mold telling you, hey, you only cleaned up the symptom, not the cause. The underlying conditions are still there, just waiting for it to come back. And the third clue to look for is hidden growth. You decide to rearrange the furniture, you pull a bookcase away from the wall, and there it is, a big patch of mold. That is almost never an isolated event. See, these sheltered spots with no airflow are total magnets for moisture, and what's happening there is often a sign of a less obvious problem that's happening all over the room. All right, all of this leads us to a really big shift in how you need to think about this. To really crack the case, you have to stop just looking at the surface, at the patch itself. You've got to zoom out and start seeing the entire room as one big, interconnected system. And this right here, this is the core idea. A room isn't just four separate walls and a ceiling. No way. It's a dynamic system where everything is talking to everything else. Think about it. Temperature, airflow, moisture, they're all in this constant dance with each other. If you've got terrible ventilation, for example, the moisture levels don't just go up in one corner. They go up everywhere. The mold just happens to show its face first on the coldest spot. But the actual problem, it's room-wide. So what's the big risk if you ignore all this? Well, you get stuck on this miserable hamster wheel of cleaning, then painting, then redecorating, all while wondering, why does this keep coming back? You're basically fighting a battle on one tiny front, while the real enemy, the room's environment, is left completely untouched. Okay, so let's get practical. How do we break this cycle? We have to start asking better questions. Questions that are about the whole environment, not just about that one little patch. First thing, really look at the location. Go touch the wall. Is it on an external wall that feels cold? Is it in a tight corner where you know the air just sits? The features of that specific spot can tell you so much about the bigger forces at play. Next, think about the timing. Is this something that only shows up in the winter? Did you see this exact same thing last year? A problem that keeps coming back with the seasons is almost a sure bet to be an environmental one. It's tied directly to those changes in temperature and condensation. And last, think about how you actually use the room. Is there a massive wardrobe shoved right up against that wall, blocking all airflow? Is that corner just cluttered with boxes? Sometimes, without even realizing it, the way we set up our rooms can create the perfect little microclimates for mold to just thrive. So, at the end of the day, why does all of this matter so much? It's about having a proportionate response. It's about not spending a ton of money on what's actually a really simple fix. And maybe even more importantly, avoiding the endless frustration of treating a huge systemic problem like it's just a little spot on the wall. So from now on, when you see that small patch of mold, I want you to resist the urge to just ask, how do I clean this? Instead, take a step back, take a breath, and ask yourself a better question. What is my environment trying to tell me? Because I promise you, the answer to that question is where the real solution is hiding.